different what I say applications, web applications, mobile application, websites, and everything, right?
Yes.
Okay. So do you know the difference between a mobile app and a web app and a website, basically?
Yes.
Okay. I'll give you an outlook. Okay.
Okay.
Website is something that is most of the time that is static. Okay. It's just a site where user can visit, get some information, and move out. Okay. It's not that interactive. Okay.
Yes.
Like the earlier days, which where we had websites most of the times, where we can draw out information, we can go from link to link and get as much information as possible. But we weren't able to interact with them, right? Give user inputs, and based on that, there would be a response from the web server. So that is where the concept came in, called as web application. Okay, application is something that is interactive with the user. Based on the user inputs, the user request, a response is given. Okay.
Okay.
Then there came something called as mobile application, which has nothing to do with actual web connectivity. It is stored in a particular mobile device. Okay, it is dependent on a device, the kind of device it is. Okay, and the client is again, as you know, in a web application cert, there are two things. One is client, one is a server, right? So these websites, web applications, or mobile applications, those are most of the time clients. Those are not servers. Okay, and APG, what it does is APG is a tool wherein if you have a backend which is unsecured or secured, both the ways. If there's a backend, there's a database. Okay, there is an where there are some web services that you have hosted in, and you want to configure them in a particular way and present it to a user. Okay, so now if you want to change a lot of things regularly based on client to client, or a web or an application developer, in that case you'll have to modify it a lot. What APG does is it settles in between the server and the client. Okay, and it modifies the data, it modifies the request, it modifies the response if required, it provides you security, it provides you analytics. So it sits between that. Okay, and again, to create these clients, there are developers, correct? Web application developers, mobile application developers, website developers. So there are developers. Again, APG basically sits between the client, that is the developer, or the end user, and the server side. Okay, so I'll give you a bit of product overview of the APG. Okay,
Okay.
just a moment. You can see the screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. See, there are a lot of mobile and different devices that I've been talking about since last few minutes. So there are different mobile devices and different applications which are continuously changing. The technology is changing, the OS are changing, right? There could be an iOS app, there could be a Windows app. So these things, everything is evolving every day, day by day, and that is where APG comes in. Okay, there again, as you can see, different devices, even yeah, car stereo systems car, are also loaded with some applications these days, just to like navigate and all. Map, for example, Google Maps again, or a weather app again. It's just a client which fetches the data from a server. Okay, and if we start hitting this is how it looks. These are on the right. Okay, let me just look up something. Ah, okay, these are all the devices, right? And these are the different services which we normally provide. Yeah, on the business end, there could be a partner, there could be a customer, or an employee. Correct. Inside your company, there would be, if you have joined or would be joining the company, there would be some employees which will be accessing some internal sites and all. Correct. So
Yes.
these sites again can be accessed from different devices, and this exactly is where APG resides. Okay.
Okay.
Ah, So accessing to all the devices, right? These devices are again being accessed by the customers or the end user, but accessing the data from the backend. Correct? So
Yes.
this backend is where the where all the data comes in, right? And in between these, okay, there will be two places where APG can reside again, here and here, fetching the data itself, right? So we have different usage of APG here, right? There will be applications, there would be APIs that we can develop on our own. API, if you don't understand, it is an application interface. Okay, it provides the interaction, it provides the interface to between the client and the server. Okay, and client is something that is used by an end user. Okay, so these are the three different ways the API or APG or API management tool, any API management tool can be used. Okay, this is app, API analytics, infrastructure, different ways. Again, this shows there are different ways to access a digital asset or a backend, right? So from APIs, see, if you develop an API, what does it mean? Okay, API is something which actually accesses the data, okay, which gets the response and provides it to the client or a mobile device or some sort of device. Okay, laptop, mobile, computer, anything, that is the client, and there is a backend as I showed you earlier. So if API is there, API is to be developed, it has to fetch the data from the backend and give it to the client. Okay, again with the app is something again in the APG itself. Once the data goes to API, API gives it to the app. Okay, so this is how it goes. Data through the API goes to the application. Okay, now this application or the app is accessed by the end user. It provides you a context basically, right? Like a different user might be having different options or settings or themes for a particular application. Correct? This gives you the context basically what the user wants. This again fetches the goes back to the API, fetches the data, comes again back. So this is a cycle basically which goes on. If you don't understand anything, Ram, just let me know. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. Again, now to develop an API, right? To develop an API, there has to be an API development team. Yeah. And API development is provided by APG using a tool, one of the three tools that APG provides called as APG Edge. Okay, APG Edge is used by the API team to develop an API. Okay, now this API is open, is given an open end. Okay, for the developer to use this. Okay, for now, application developer uses these open APIs to develop an app, which is this app is again used by an end user. Okay, see, there is a backend, there are databases and all. Let me move this. Yeah. So this is the backend of the database or some web service if you have created one. Okay. API team, what it does is accesses this data. Okay. In order to access this data, they have to develop a API, application interface. This application interface, once developed by the API team, can access this backend. Okay. Then these APIs, once open, are accessed by the developer to create an app. This app is used by the user. So this is a to and fro uh, flow of the data. Okay. Now APG Edge gives you all these things like
Mayur,
API team development.
hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mayur, why don't we get the data from directly from the backend?
Okay. Right. Correct. Good question actually. Okay. See, accessing the data directly from the backend. Okay. Again, if let me show you. See, if this is the user accessing an app, okay, an app directly goes to the backend. there'll be a lot of things that can be missed over here, okay, or have to be separately developed over here. That is, if I have a service, right, web service, take it as web service that you have developed, okay, and this web service is and a client is created to take to access these web services, okay, or the backend, and this application is something that is accessed by the client or the end user, sorry, right? Now you're talking is how can, like, why are we not accessing it directly, correct?
Yes.
Now as a developer, you know, if you want to access some data within within a database, probably, correct? So how do
Yes.
you do that? You open a database client again. If Oracle, it is like Oracle developer, SQL developer. If MySQL, there is MySQL, again a client is there, right? Workbench. So there are
Yeah.
different clients for the database to be accessed, right? So if you want to access the data directly, you will have to access it from a database client directly, correct?
Yes.
Correct. Now, if there is an end user who doesn't know how a database works, who doesn't know how to access this data, will need some UI, some user interface to access this data,
Yes, exactly.
correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So now this user interface, how do you, these are the user interface is the client, okay, that you develop. A mobile app, a web app, or website. This is the user interface that directly accesses the database, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now if I'm accessing every time, if I'm using a web app or some sort of UI, some sort of client to access the database, there could be different things that can hamper my performance, right? The number of hits, right? Correct.
Okay. Yes.
My server might be having some limitations, number of hits. Then threat protection, right? There could be some different kind of hacking and uh, different resources that we can use, like JavaScript can be implemented there to just to get all the data. There could be some SQL injections. There could be some cracking, right? There could be brute force attacks, right? So these are different threats that I have on my database if I access it directly, right? So now if you're sending a request based on your username and password, correct, and you access the database directly, there have to be different security concerns that you need to take care, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, one thing. Second thing is number of hits. There would be server limit. Third thing is you need analytics. These days everything works on analytics, right? You need to know what user is using what exactly. If I say most analytics is used these days in, let's say, e-commerce, correct? This is very specific. If you go to a Flipkart site, they'll be showing you the products which are very specific to your usage and your accessibility, correct? If you're having you're having a look at this particular product, everywhere, every site you'll go, you'll find this product now, correct? Advertisements and all,
Yeah.
correct? So there has to be analysis on what kind of data user is using. Is this data specific to this user only, or how many times the user has accessed my application, or yeah, similarly there are different kind of usage analytics. How many times user has logged in, how many hits the user have done, okay? These analytics again provides us getting better of our security concerns and serving the user according to his or her own usage, correct? So the third thing that is required is analytics, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So this is where we implement APG in between. It gives us better security. It gives us a way to implement these APIs, okay, to stop the direct access of the backend basically, so that threat protection is there, analytics is there, security is there, correct? So there
Yes.
are these three different different reasons that we need API management tool for.
Okay.
Okay. Now you got
Yeah.
your answer.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Nice. So now APG, what APG provides us again? The three, it provides you the middle layer, right, between the user and client, or basically application and the backend, right, to access this data, to provide you analysis, threat protection, data exchange, everything it gives you, right? And APG Edge also gives you a way to develop a proxy, develop a API. You know what a proxy is,
Don't know exactly.
Ram? Okay, so proxy is something. Okay, if let me give you a real world example. Okay, so you went to a college, right?
Yeah.
Hello? Yeah. So
Yes.
now you had to mark attendance every day, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So as what we did, or you might have did earlier, we sometimes told our friends to put our attendance instead of us.
Okay.
Yeah. So we used to do that in college. That is called as proxy attendance, right? So someone, instead of me, someone else would attend that class. That would be a proxy. Okay. So in colleges, I'd say that's a fake attendance that we can have. Okay. In another words, another example. Okay. So there might be okay. Let me take as my home. Okay. I want to address. I have my address of my home. Correct. Now I don't want everyone to reach my home directly. Okay. So I give a proxy address that this particular address serves as a home to me. It is not exactly my home, but it serves as a home to me. Okay. Now
Yeah.
every interaction or couriers and all, you might send to that address. Okay. And I'll access it from there. You don't have to come directly to my home.
Okay.
Okay. So that is a proxy. It is not exactly where you want to go, but all the resources are available at your proxy place also. Okay. The same resources are available at your proxy place. So if you go and hit the proxy, you'll get the same data as the actual application.
Okay.
Okay.
So we
So
have of
this
another
is what
we have of another thing.
I didn't get you. Can you speak clear,
No, no.
louder?
Because I would say that it's a behalf of another thing. We
It's
can
not
call it as
half.
proxy. Okay.
Yeah. It's not half exactly. Okay. It's like when you access this proxy, okay, it doesn't have resources of its own.
Okay.
Okay, there are no resources of its own. Okay, when you hit the proxy, it will get the resources from the actual server. Okay, and the data, that is the data or the resources that are now available, will be given to you.
Okay.
Okay, so again, API proxy or any proxy gives you a better sense of security. Okay, now if you have antivirus installed on your proxy, right, or firewalls installed on your proxy, okay, and also the same firewalls installed on your actual server, correct? Now if someone wants to hit you with some threat, with some with any kind of threat, that person or that script has to first go to the proxy, because that is the only open end you have provided to the open world, correct? No one except you knows where the actual resources reside, right? Other world, outside world, can only access the proxies. So once there's a hit, there's a threat, it will go to your proxy server, right? It will go to your proxy. It will have to give away all the threats and everything on the proxy server itself. It won't reach your actual server. Okay. From there, maybe the information can be collected of the actual resource server. Okay. But if someone wants to hit your server, hit your resources, that person has to go through all the proxies. Okay.
Okay.
So that is what a proxy is. It's not actually an address. It's just what I say, a shortcut that you create. Sometimes you play a game or something, in your computer that is installed, you right click and send to desktop, you create a shortcut, right?
Yes.
So that is a shortcut, proxy shortcut. Now if you implement some security and all on this shortcut, will you be able to directly go to the actual resource?
No.
No, right? No one except who has created that shortcut, correct?
Yes.
Exactly. So that is what a proxy is. Okay. Now API. Okay. In APG, in APG, API development is basically proxy development. Okay. Now APG again, most of the time uses REST services. Okay, RESTful services. So if you don't know about RESTful services, okay, let me question you first. Do you know about REST services? Anything about REST services?
No.
Okay, great. Fine. So in SOAP, what happens is once you access the server, it gives you a visual, right? It gives you a XML according to which you'll have to create a request and send it to the server, correct? There are a set
Yes.
of rules that comes in visual,
Yes.
correct? It is all XML based. And now the request according to visual when sent will receive a response. In REST, it's totally different. Visual is a SOAP is a what I say, a protocol. Okay, it's a protocol. It's a set of rules. It's grammar. Correct. RESTful is a way of talking. It's just an architecture. Okay, it's not grammar. It's just that number of words are there. Now you fit and match if someone else understands it or not. Okay, it's there is no grammar for that. It's just an architecture wherein you send in your request. Okay, in JSON there are JSON based requests. Okay, you can straight away hit this RESTful service or server. You need not have a WSDL, you need not have any rule. You simply hit that particular URL and you'll get the data. That's it. So there is no sense of security there,
Okay.
first of all. Okay, it is faster. There is no sense of security. The number of requests and responses, those can be more per second, right? And those can be lighter. Basically, the request that you send in or response that you receive will be very, very light in comparison to SOAP. Again, SOAP is dependent on XML, REST is dependent on JSON. Okay, REST can also work on XMLs, but you'll have to convert the data then later, XML to JSON. Okay, so RESTful is something like APG, and all the API management tools are basically based on REST services. APG also gives you an advantage that you can work on SOAP services too. Okay, but there is some specific configuration that you'll need to do in APG so that you can access these SOAP services. RESTful services, it's very simple. There is no configuration required. You simply hit the URL, you'll get the data.
Okay.
Okay. So APG Edge gives you that freedom to create these like to access these resources with the limited server time, like per user can access it only for 1 hour, or per second the user can hit only 10 hits, right? Or the total number of hits on a server per hour can be only 10,000. Those kind of limitations in APG Edge, right? Then you can provide a better security layer. So if you don't want someone to access, you can restrict it then and there itself. Okay, APG Edge also gives you a way to develop your own applications. Okay, now if I have developed an API and you want to access this API, because this is a proxy, I'm not going to give you direct access to my backend servers, right? I'm going to give you access to these APIs that or proxies that I have developed, right? So I can control you as a developer who is going to develop an application on this data provided by APIs. So you're going to need this data, right? So I can restrict and give you the access according to my will. As a like you being a developer, I can give you the access according to my will, what all data can be provided to you, what all APIs will be provided to you, and what not to provide to you. Okay, so it gives me this freedom where I can control the developers, I can have better security, I can develop my own proxies. I'm not dependent on anyone. Like if in a single request I want to collect data from 20 different resources, like in a weather app, if you know weather app or climate change app, Yahoo Weather and all, they have around 20 different locations which from which the data simultaneously is fetched out. Okay, then in these 20 servers, it also accesses data of last 20 years. Okay, so there will be 20 into 20, like 400 different requests at the one particular hit. Now, if you're not using an API or a proxy, you'll be hitting one, right? It won't be putting in 20, like 400 different requests. It cannot. So API again does that for you. It gives you a way to have multiple different to access multiple different servers or requests at the same time. Okay. Now, if someone might have already have APIs, open APIs, 20 different APIs other than your own servers, backend servers. Now if you want, from your own created API, you can have data from the APIs that have been exposed by someone else also, not exactly going to their backend, right? So there will be multiple servers that you can hit, multiple requests that you can have. You'll have a better analytics. Again, you can restrict developer. You can have better threat protection. So are you understanding why exactly is this used?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So now here again. So these are the three services, okay, given by APG Edge to us. Okay. One is API services, analytic services, developer services. As I've told you, API services will be providing this is an API. If API services or a proxy service is there, it will provide data from backend to the application. Okay. Now this application is developed by a developer. Okay. Again, API services are developed by API team or API developer. App developer develops an app. API developer develops an API. Okay. So two different kind of developers are there. API services, once developed by the API team, gives access to the app. Data access from backend to the app. Now, app developer has to develop this app. Okay. And give it to the user. If my words are not that confusing.
No, no, just please go ahead. I'm good.
Okay. Okay. So now, developer services you can give, as I've told you, if there is an application developer who's creating an app using your own proxies. Once you have your proxies created, now you can give them access. Okay. You can give them access. You can remove the access. You know what APIs to give them, or what set of, you can create a group of APIs. You can create a product out of that, and that product will be provided to the developer to create an app. Okay, so you can group number of APIs as a product, number of products into one application. That has to be done by the developer. Now what all to give, what all not to give, how to access, number of hits, number of, like, if that person can introduce some JavaScript into this into his requests or not, or if he's accessing if he wants to access data from different servers. With one hit I can monetize that at the back end. I can retrieve all the data. If I'm getting like 100% of the data and I only want to provide 50% of it to the developer, I can change that data all in my APIs. So I have total control over what a developer can access. Okay, the developer once has developed an app, okay, it will be given to a user, right, to use it. Now, however it is configured, but at the end, what the user is using, I need to know that, right? I need to know what kind of data user is accessing, how many hits, how many wrong hits, false hits, threats, this and that, everything. So that will be all given in the analytics services. Okay, so you get now I think you have a fair idea of what is API services. That is creation of proxies. Developer services, how to give access to the developer, what to give, what not to give, everything is access from here. Once it is given to the user, there are analytic services where you can see from app, like from the front end, from the user perspective to the back end, what all the analytics you want. So this tool APG is that good in like analytic services that Google nowadays, most of the analytics from on Google are provided by APG only.
So you mean to say the APG tool invented by Google?
Yes, Google and APG are partners.
Okay.
Okay, Google has bought all the almost all the services from APG. Okay, and now being a partner from APG, it is using APG's analytic services instead of its own. Even it advertises APG. If you'll go to APG site, or I'll tell you how to do that, login and everything later. But you'll find all the Google Analytics very similar, and most of the time it may advertise. It's an APG may advertise its own analytic services as Google services. Okay. Now, so there are two kinds of APG versions available. Okay, one is on-premises, one is cloud services, as you can see on the screen. On-premises is you can purchase a license from APG, okay, get the whole tool, you can download it and install it on your server or your local machine. Okay, now to use this APG, once you have it on your local machine, you can simply double click it, open it, and create proxies, access to the developer, this and that, everything can be done. Or other thing is cloud services, wherein you can go to apg.com, okay, create your free account and use it. It doesn't need any licensing. To create a free account, it doesn't need any licensing. It uh, uh, it actually gives you almost all the services which are coming like within this on-premises access. Okay, and it can be accessed from anywhere around the world. Okay, this is one of the best usage of APG, that if you host something on APG as a proxy, it will never ever go down. That is what APG takes pride on, that its server has never gone down and it won't ever, because it is all hosted on cloud. So once you have created a proxy, hosted it on APG, or created a proxy itself on APG, it will always work. It will never go down. Okay, so you don't need to worry about what are the servers, is my server running not or anything. Proxy will always be there to serve you. Okay,
Yes.
so you got two different kind of services on APG, like on premises and cloud.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll be using, like, most of the time in this session, training session and all, we'll be using cloud services instead of on premises, because it's a licensed version and I don't think we should be paying for the services which are already there available online. Okay, so now after the developer services and all, this is analytics services. See how the analytics is shown basically. There are different kind of graphs or different kind of like configurable X and Y axis and all, where you can access these analytics. Okay, see like how much is there on the mobile, how much is on the test app, websites, consoles. So there are different kind of analytics that you can generate on your own. You can only also create your own analytics graphs. You can have like these circular graphs, you can have bar graphs, you can have point to point graphs, linear graphs basically. And these different graphs, again, different axes, you can have different list and different models that you want to view. So this is one of the best in the world. Okay, so in the developer services, this is how a developer service looks in the front page. I'll show you how to create developer and everything, developer services and all in the upcoming things. Okay, again, this is developer services. These are different applications that are created by some developer, different API developers basically, not the app developers. Okay, so this is applications, these are APIs that are created. Again, so three things: developer services gives you access to a different application development. API services give you access to creation of APIs or proxies. Analytics services give you analytics. So three different products from the same place. Okay, so that is where APG is so popular. So you can create your own applications on APG itself. You don't need to learn a lot about how to develop an app. You can go to APG, you'll have some configuration to make, and you can create your own apps using APG. And and to access the data from the apps, you can use API proxies that are developed by APG. Okay, if you don't have your own backend like database and all, APG also provides you the backend proxies that you can use to access different proxies.
హలో
Hey Ram, are you able to hear me?
yes ma'am.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. So now, again, what this APG gives us, it's a global presence. You can access it from anywhere, right? It gives you like there are no downtimes. There is a cloud like architecture, the cloud architecture that it gives you. Okay, that like 5-tier architecture, basically backend, API, developer, client, and end user. So it's basically 5-tier cloud architecture that is required. It gives you, okay, it gives you round the clock analytics and monitoring services, right? So these are different usage, different ways why to use APG and why not any other API management tool. Okay. So okay, so again, build for requirement of digital economy. Again, there would be different data that you can access. Again, multiple data points, data endpoints, different apps, different APIs that you want to access. So it's like multiples of data and access points that you can access at the same point. Again, API operations, global operations means you can create your own proxy or API services here. Someone sitting in US or Europe might be using the same access, right? They don't have to install or have different applications and access it. Okay, so are you there, Ram?
Yes ma'am.
Okay, okay. Again, end-to-end analytics. Okay, modern app functionality. You can create your own apps. There is monetization and developer services. Monetization means if required money and all those things. Okay, so that can be given. And these are different digital different clients that use APG these days. You might know some of them like Dell, eBay, Cars.com, Best Buy, Marks and Spencers, Autodata. You might have heard some of these, correct?
Yes, yes ma'am.
Okay. So again, another developer thing. Okay. Once you have got the APG Edge, there is API Insights. Insights again will be related to all the analytics and all, how, what is working, what not is working, where the action, what is the action that user has taken, what is the data that is going out, that the request coming in, everything. Okay, so this is Insights basically. Okay, so this is how. Okay, see, I told you about accessing different proxies from one particular location, right? So this is how it might look. Users accessing an app developed by an app developer who is accessing an API that is developed by an API developer. Now this API or proxy might be accessing other APIs or proxies developed by different developers or different organizations itself, right? So if I'm having weather of particular location like Bangalore itself, and another API for accessing the weather of only Hyderabad, okay, and someone from Delhi does want to access the weather of all of India, right? So I might have to hit all the APIs for different cities, all 400 different cities of India, and then compile them out and give the weather of India. I might need that. So to access all those different 400 APIs, I might have all the APIs different and one API just to access this all data from the different proxies or APIs. Correct?
Yes,
So it's a negative. It's a network. It's an ecosystem that can be developed. Okay. So like you might have heard of web services and microservices. Web services and microservices.
yes, yes.
Okay. What is microservices basically? Okay. Okay. Let's park that question. Okay. It's basically if you have like 10 different tasks to do. Okay. It's like you have to cook, but inside cooking there will be 10 different tasks. Okay. Now cooking could be a service, right? That has to be done. Or you can divide it in further small services, each having its own usage, right? Like cutting vegetables, pouring oil, or heating it up, starting the burner. This could be different tasks, subtasks, right? Now what I can do is create these subtasks as micro or small services themselves, okay? And a big task or a big web service called as cooking. Okay. Now whenever I have to cut vegetables, whether or not in cooking, right? I could be preparing a salad. It's not cooking. I'm not cooking anything. Whether or not, right, if I want that cutting vegetable things in that particular service or not, I can still use it. Correct. So I am giving this as keeping the services as atomic as possible, basically as reusable as possible. Okay. So this is what API development can do. Okay. We can work as if we are developing a microservice environment. Okay. So now again, so these different consoles or clients or UIs being accessed at the front end by the end users here. These are accessing the data from APG Edge or APIs or proxies that we develop. Okay. Now API Edge can access a network of different APIs to get the data, or the backend services like databases and all. Either backend services or databases, right? I can have a web service or a database where there is no web service and access the data directly, right? So this gives you access to different data like data locations where you can access the data from, and gives you analytics also. Okay. And these all things are provided to the front end. Got it?
Yeah.